The 2025 college football season is officially here, and in this video, I want to respond to my viewers' college football hot takes for this season. So without further ado, let's get right into this video. Starting off with this first hot take, this person says the Big 12 will continue mediocrity. And I'm not really going to leave much of a response to this hot take, because the Big 12 is actually in a much better place than it was before. We got some good contenders this year, like Arizona State and Texas Tech. They could be very good. Baylor is a team I'm very high on. They might not be one very good team in this conference, but they are pretty deep, and most of the games in this conference are going to be within one or two touchdown spreads. You have some pretty competitive football teams. A team like Arizona State or Texas Tech could take teams to their limit in the playoffs. We saw that with Arizona State last season. They almost beat Texas, so I completely disagree with this hot take. If you give me a better explanation, then maybe, but this just doesn't make a lot of sense. This next person says if Florida State beats Alabama, they will be in the college football playoffs. Even if Florida State beats Alabama, I still think it's going to be tough for them to make the way to the playoffs. They still have tough games on the schedule. They get Miami and Florida, and can they really stay consistent all year? They have a whole new coaching staff and some new pieces on that team, and maybe they just catch Alabama lacking in week one. Regardless, a win against Alabama would definitely prove something, and Florida State would certainly have a case to be a playoff contender if they manage to beat Alabama in week one. But it is college football. Teams play up and down all year, so it's really hard to tell after one game in the season. This next person says Michigan will miss a bowl game and Sharon Moore will be fired. Now, I am not very high on Michigan, but this just seems like disrespect. I have said all offseason that Michigan is a bit overrated. I don't see them taking that step to compete for a playoff spot just yet, but I also don't see them missing a bowl game. Who are they going to lose to? I don't think Bryce Underwood is going to be this excellent quarterback in year one, but they were very deep on defense. They had a strong defensive performance against Alabama, and they did that without some of their top defensive players that went to the NFL. They got young guys coming up on defense. They're going to be a good defensive team, and I think they're going to run the ball just fine with that backfield. This Michigan team should win at least 7 football games, regardless of how Bryce Underwood plays. So I do not see this happening, and I don't see Sharon Moore getting fired already. This next person says Alabama will miss the playoffs and Kalen DeBoer will get fired. Now, this one makes a little bit more sense. I could see Bama missing the playoffs again. They have a lot to prove after a pretty disappointing 4-loss season, their first 4-loss season in over a decade since 2007, so nearly 2 decades. It's still hard to believe that they will fire Kalen DeBoer as long as this Bama team is a contender in the SEC. Because who are they going to replace DeBoer with? And it's only his second year, and I do expect them to make progress this season, so I don't agree with this one either. I love the Alabama defense. I think they're going to have one of the top defenses in the country this year. They return a lot of starters from last year. Most of the starters are back, and they were playing pretty strong defense in the back half of last season. They are very talented, and I don't see them staying down. This next person says Michigan State will run through the Big Ten with their only loss being to Indiana, securing them a playoff spot. And maybe Michigan State is that team in the Big Ten to surprise and have an Indiana type of season. But there's no way I see this happening with Michigan State. Indiana had one of the weakest schedules, and if Michigan State wants to win 11 games, they have to be a very legit football team, even better than Indiana was last season. They don't only play some good teams like USC, Indiana, Nebraska on the road, and also Michigan and Minnesota on the road, but they also play a national title contender in Penn State, a team that I don't see them beating unless they get a huge upset. So there is really no world where I see this Michigan State team winning 11 games, but I could see them having a surprise season, maybe winning 8 to 9 football games. I like the defense and some of the talent it has returning, and I think Aiden Childs will take a step forward at quarterback. And I love the head coach in Jonathan Smith. He really turned around Oregon State, so this team has optimism. I really think they're going to have a better receiver room this year. Nick Marsh is a super underrated receiver, the number one receiver returning for this team. And they also add Amari Kelly and Christian McCray out of the portal. I think they're going to be more explosive and talented this season, but I don't know if they're going to be super good on the line of scrimmage. And I just don't see this team being super good. But I do think they'll take a step forward, and watch out for Jonathan Smith and this team. But I do not see them getting 11 wins in any world. This next person says UCLA will upset Penn State on October 4th and they will end up being more than just a borderline bowl eligible team. Although I'm very high on Penn State and I have them winning the national championship, I do love this bold prediction, and it is somewhat reasonable. It is called a hot take for a reason. Some of these hot takes make no sense to me, but this one definitely makes sense. UCLA was a scrappy team last year. They competed with some good teams. They were solid defensively, and I do think they have upside at quarterback with Nico Iamaleava. Was he a bit overrated heading into his freshman season? Yes, but he is still a decent quarterback and a former five-star, and he can bring something to this UCLA offense with his legs as well. I think they'll have a pretty good rushing attack as well. They get that game against Penn State at home. That could be a trap game, so watch out for this UCLA team. I don't think they'll beat Penn State, but I could see them coming very close to a bowl game and maybe doing more than that. This next person says Georgia Tech makes the ACC championship game. This is actually one of my bold predictions for this season, so I completely agree. I think Georgia Tech is just a well-rounded team from top to bottom and a very well-coached team. They really have the experience on offense with multiple offensive linemen back, one of their good receivers in Malik Rutherford, and more importantly, one of the better running backs in the country in Jamal Haynes, and Haynes King at quarterback, a gritty quarterback and leader for that offense. And they got a strong defense with some guys back. I think they're going to be a very well balanced team, and they know how to run the ball and control the clock. And I think that's going to pay off with a very easy schedule. This is certainly a team that can compete for an ACC title and get a playoff spot as well. This next person says my Texas Longhorns beat both the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Georgia Bulldogs this season, although it's unlikely that it will happen. Now, this one's not a bad bold prediction. It is unlikely, and I don't agree with it. But Texas does have the defense and possibly the run game to control both of those games. Ohio State has to replace a lot on defense and on offense. They have questions on the line of scrimmage. But I think Texas just has more upside on defense than both Ohio State and Georgia. Georgia has question marks on the offensive line, one of the bigger question marks in the SEC. If Georgia can improve the line of scrimmage play, I think they're going to be a very dangerous team this year and hard to beat. It is hard to see Texas winning both those games, though. They have to replace a lot of the offensive linemen, and I don't see them being super deep in the receiving room. But if they can just ground the rock and play defense, they have a chance. So definitely watch out for this Texas team. This next person says California goes 13-0, winning the ACC, only to lose to Texas Tech in their first playoff game. Look, California going 13-0 would just be wild with a freshman quarterback. Some of these hot takes are just super bold, but you also gotta be somewhat reasonable. It's very hard for even the best team in the country to go undefeated. The only team that went undefeated last year were the Oregon Ducks, and they were the number one team in the country heading into the playoffs. So going 13-0 would be a crazy season and probably rank them inside the top 5. Sure, they have an ACC schedule, and maybe there's a world where they can win 10 games if they have a surprise season. But that's very hard to do in this landscape. They open at Oregon State, a tough atmosphere. They also play Minnesota out of conference. They play both Virginia Tech and Louisville on the road and play SMU, who went to the ACC title last season. So they really don't have the toughest schedule the more I look at the schedule. But 13-0 is just something I don't see. But do you think some people are too low on California, ranking them in the bottom 3 or bottom 2 of the ACC? I know they had a huge roster turnover, but I think the freshman quarterback will be alright. He was able to beat out Devin Brown. He should be decent. The defense has a lot of upside. They add Harrison Taggart as well, a very good linebacker from BYU. And I think Justin Wilcox will find a way to get this team back to a bowl game again. I think they have some of the depth necessary. But this is really asking too much from this California team. They are not going 13-0. This next person says South Florida will win the American Conference. And I actually like this prediction because South Florida is a team that returns a lot of production. And with the healthy Byron Brown, they could definitely do something. They are challenged early in the season. I could see them starting 0-3 and still winning out. They might have the toughest first 3 games of all of the college football teams. They play Miami and Florida, and they also play Boise State. That is brutal. But with Alex Golesh continuing to keep this team consistent and trying to get this team to break through, next year could be the year with a gifted quarterback, and if he can stay healthy, this team could be dangerous. They got some weapons on offense, so watch out for South Florida. I do think they're a contender in that conference, definitely a sneaky contender. This next person says South Carolina goes 11-1, and Lenore Sellers wins the Heisman. Their only loss will be to Clemson, and they will lose in the first round of the playoffs to Texas Tech. I like this prediction because it is somewhat reasonable and it definitely makes sense. I'm personally not bold enough to pick South Carolina to win that many games, but I think they have one of the highest ceilings in the nation. They got guys on both sides of the ball with high ceilings. Lenore Sellers at quarterback is one of those guys, and he is a Heisman contender. He is a super gifted quarterback. They also got receivers who could step up. Watch out for Nick Harbor. They got Dylan Stewart on the edge and Damon Clowney coming over as a transfer, a name that people are not too high on, but watch out for him. This is a defense with talent, and they could definitely win some of those tough games on the schedule with some decent home spots, and they play better football in the back half of the season, and they got a lot of tough games. Watch out for this team to upset a couple of teams and make statements. An 11-1 is possible. And with the little depth that this South Carolina team has, they could definitely lose in the first round of the playoffs after an excellent season. I love the talent, but they don't have great depth, so I don't see this happening. But this isn't a super unreasonable prediction. I like it. This next person says Arkansas not only makes a bowl game, but find themselves in playoff discussions going into November and Sam Pittman is saved. With a quarterback, anything is possible, and I think Taylor Green is a good quarterback. I just don't love the schedule, and the defense is kind of in shambles. They lost a lot, and they weren't great last season. They went to a bowl game last season, but I also don't know if they can replicate that. Sam Pittman hasn't been super consistent. Look, with the schedule, Sam Pittman could realistically be fired halfway through the season. They play at Ole Miss, at Memphis, and Notre Dame. They also play Tennessee, Texas A&M off of the bye week. They could start 2-3, 2-4, 2-5. Sam Pittman could get fired. But what if they do make it through that stretch with maybe only 1 or 2 losses, and Taylor Green is a dynamic enough quarterback to get some of those big wins? But it takes more than a quarterback, and he needs help from this team. They only return 8 starters. They lost a lot of their key playmakers, a beast at running back, so no, I do not see this happening, and Sam Pittman could very well get fired. This next person says Navy is the best Group of 5 team. Now, this prediction I could get behind because they run the ball well, they control the clock, and they play good defense. They got a lot of return in production next season and a head coach that is doing a great job with this team recently. And I think they have one of the better quarterbacks and most efficient quarterbacks in the country in Blake Horvath. They have the team and they have the experience. Watch out for them to compete with the top team in the Group of 5 in Boise State. This next person says Louisville makes the playoffs as the 12th seed. I could see this happening. Louisville has the schedule to do it. I actually have them starting 9-0, but they got a couple of tough games in the back half of the schedule that can knock them out. And the defense will definitely have to take a step forward. But offensively, that might be enough to get them to 10-2, 11-1, maybe a playoff spot. I think Miller Moss is a lot better than people think he is. He's a decent quarterback. They have a strong receiving core and one of the best running backs in the young Isaac Brown. So watch out for this Louisville team. And finally, the last hot take for this video is that Penn State will win the national title. I love it and I completely agree. I've talked about this team all off season and I am very high on them. I am drinking the Kool-Aid. This team reminds me a lot of 2023 Michigan with the returning depth and the veterans on the team and the coaching staff. Maybe not the same defense, but they should have a very good defense as well with Jim Knowles coming in. He led the #1 defense in America last season. And with 4 starting offensive linemen back and a strong defensive line, teams win football games at the line of scrimmage. They have a veteran quarterback in Drew Aller. They have 2 of the best running backs in the country returning. And more importantly, they upgraded the receiver room. This could be the best receiver room under James Franklin, with 3 very reliable guys coming in from the portal. Year 2 under Andy Kolnick should be a big year. He already did a lot in year 1 for that offense, so watch out for this Penn State team. I do think they will win the national title. But anyways, that is going to do it for my hot takes. I don't know the next time I'm going to do this video, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. And you guys can leave some of your hot takes down in the comments below. I'm definitely going to look back on these and see how some of you did. I also did my own bold predictions a week ago if you want to go back and check that out on my channel. But anyways, let me remind you guys to like the video and also subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And if you guys love college football, then you'll love this channel because we upload a ton of college football content and we basically cover everything on this channel. So definitely consider subscribing and also consider checking out my socials down in the description below. and also in the pinned comment. I have a membership for anybody who wants to join. You'll get some perks, and that includes talking college football with me on Saturdays before the games start in the Discord server that I have. I love talking the sport of college football, so feel free to join if you want to. But anyways, that is going to do it for this video, and peace out.